Good morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the committee. It is truly an honor to be here today. I appreciate in the face of this weather event that you guys actually showed up here to do the people's business. I have the honor of representing over 5 million people nationally. I am the president of Convention of States Action. We are the national organization pushing forward for an Article 5 convention among the states. We have a fundamental problem in Washington, D.C., which is Washington, D.C. has grown out of control. I think Representative Taylor described it well, but I want to show you a visual representation. When we talk about the United States Constitution, we are generally talking about this document. Many of you have one of these. It's called a pocket constitution, this particular one from the Heritage Foundation. And I hear from our opponents all the time that this is just a wonderful, perfect document and we ought not to, quote unquote, mess with it. And I would agree with them on that. Unfortunately, today, if you call the government publishing office and say you'd like to order the United States Constitution, you'll be stunned because they'll ask you for $130+. Not because this one's printed on gold leaf, but because they are talking about this Constitution. And if you read the spine, I'm not overstating it. It says the Constitution of the United States of America Centennial Edition. 2,738 pages. This one's published in 2012. It's the last full edition. If you have all the supplements, I don't travel with those. It's over 3,000 pages and over 10 pounds. This contains every case ever issued by the United States Supreme Court telling us what this document means. And they have changed the meaning of this document dramatically and fundamentally and in a way that most Americans don't agree with. 72% of Americans today say that the federal government is too big and does too much. You can imagine at 72%, that's bipartisan. 80 to 85% of Americans polled over the last 30 years consistently say we need term limits in Washington, D.C. 80 to 85% of Americans polled consistently over the last 30 years say we need a balanced budget imposed on Washington, D.C. The three subject matter areas of the resolution before you today allow all of those things to be imposed on Washington, D.C. Why do we need to impose those things? Doesn't Congress have the power to propose those amendments? Indeed they do, and indeed they never will. It's not human nature for people to limit their own power. No tyranny in human history has ever limited their own power. This idea, the idea that you, the state legislators, would have the power to do this was presented to the Constitutional Convention on September 15th, 1787. Colonel George Mason stood and he addressed the men assembled and he said this: we have a fundamental problem with the document we've drafted. By the way, this is only 2 days before the convention's over. They are done, essentially. The document is in final form. He says we have a fundamental problem. We've given the power to Congress to propose amendments, but we've not given the same power to the people acting through the states. And he asked a question which I would ask you today. And I would ask the opponents of this resolution today. Are we so naive that we believe that a federal government that becomes a tyranny will ever propose the right kind of amendments to restrain that tyranny? Now, we know the founders' answers because it was very clear. Madison's notes reflect two abbreviations, two Latin abbreviations at that moment in the convention. And they say nin com, which is short Latin for no comment, no debate. They didn't even debate it. It was so obvious to the men assembled. I think they probably laughed when he said it. They felt foolish that they had forgotten to include this. And we actually know that because a vote was taken. And they included the second clause of Article 5, what we're actually debating today, unanimously. It's the only thing I'm aware of in the Constitution, no debate and unanimously adopted. And they chose to give you the power. Representative Taylor discussed this. I think this is incredible. When you come here and you get your orientation and they show you where the restrooms are and the cafeteria is, where the legislative drafting office is, they don't tell you about your federal power. I've asked this question to state legislators all over the country, people whom I respect highly. What's your role in the federal government? And I usually get a blank stare. And the answer is, you are the most powerful people in the federal government. For only you have the power to call a convention, to propose amendments, and to ratify those amendments, thereby changing the actual structure of the federal government. Why you? Why didn't they give that power to Congress? Why didn't they give that power to the president or to the courts? Sometimes the courts take it without being given. Why'd they give it to you? And the answer is because they were you. You are them. They were state legislators. They were on county councils and county boards of supervisors. They understood and believed in government close to the people. What we're asking you to do today is to restore federalism, to take a stand that South Carolinians should decide for themselves. The fundamental question that you have to ask yourself when you vote on this is who decides? Does Washington, D.C. decide for South Carolina? Do we believe that? Do we believe in the status quo? Do we believe that they should continue to control 60 to 65% of your budget like they do today? Or do you stand for South Carolinians who wish to decide for themselves? I have the honor standing here today of representing almost 40,000 South Carolinians who have signed the petition in support of Convention of States. And standing here speaking for them, I would ask you to pass this resolution out of subcommittee. I also have to let you know that today, sitting downstairs in the overflow rooms, over 60, when I was down there, over 60 people here in support, on a weather day like today, in support of Convention of States. An overwhelming number of people travel from all across the state to make their presence and their support known to you. So standing here today, it's my honor to represent those 40,000 South Carolinians, the South Carolinians who traveled here today, to ask you to pass this resolution out of subcommittee. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.